In the 1960s, Texas ranked 6th by population. With its 9.5 million residents, it was only behind Ohio, Illinois, Pennsylvania, California, and New York. The 1970 U.S. Census marked the downfall of New York, getting knocked from the first position by California. Texas, for its part, moved to the 4th place with an astonishing 16.9% increase in population, amounting to almost 11.2 million people. The 1980 U.S. Census saw this number rise to 14.2 million, designating Texas as the 3rd most populous state in the U.S. While Texas saw an impressive 19.4% population increase at the 1990 census, it was still ranked number 3, only behind New York and California. The 1990s were also when the more than 10 million gap between California and other U.S. states first appeared. It would take another decade before Texas assumed the high 2nd place it holds today, surpassing 20 million residents at the 2000 U.S. Census. Though California was still firmly planted at number 1, Texas boasted, and still does, a much faster growth rate than the Golden State. This rang true in the 2010s as well, when Texas grew by 20.6% to reach a figure of 25 million people. In comparison, California grew significantly slower, leaving it with 37.2 million people at the 2010 census. This gap would only widen in the 2020s when Texas grew by 15.9% to 29.14 million people, while California only grew by 6% to 39.54 million people. If you do the math, you'll realize that the overall gap between California and Texas narrowed from 13 million to only 10.4 million during the first 2 decades of the 21st century. More importantly, this gap has only kept narrowing since. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck in 2020, California faced an unprecedented scenario in its long history of demographic dominance. It actually started losing people. By July of 2022, an estimated 700,000 people left California. Throw the 200,000 new residents into the mix, and you get an alarming population decline of roughly 500,000. Texas, on the other hand, faced no similar scenario. In fact, its population grew by almost 900,000 people between April of 2020 and July of 2022. So, for the first time in recent history, the gap in population between California and Texas dropped below 10 million. California had a little over 39 million people, while Texas had over 30. Unsurprisingly, Texas isn't slowing down at all. The Lone Star State added some million people to its overall population in the last 2 years, while California's growth was measured in thousands. This puts the gap between California and Texas to fewer than 8 million people as of 2024. If Texas keeps up with the current growth rate, it's expected to surpass California sometime in the 2040s. So with that in mind, let's talk political power. The U.S. House of Representatives, the lower chamber of the U.S. Congress, is population-based. That's how Texas managed to add 2 new representatives in a relatively short period of time, bringing its total to 38, which is 8.7% of the total 435 seats. Texas also accounts for over 7% of electoral votes needed to win the U.S. presidency. So it's no wonder the Lone Star State is one of the most sought-after states in the presidential elections. In recent history, the state has gone decidedly Republican. The last time Texas voted blue was in 1976. The state has also been at the forefront of many prominent social issues in the U.S., including immigration and healthcare, with Texas often setting the tone for national debates. The state's political clout is further amplified by its economic power. However, Texas's economic power is arguably the number 1 reason why the Lone Star State is expected to become the most powerful state in the U.S. Let's break this down for a minute. First up, what's the current state of Texas's economy? When measured by nominal gross domestic product, or GDP, Texas has the 2nd largest economy in the U.S. In 2023, Texas's GDP was just over $2.5 trillion, a 6.7% increase from 2022. This means that Texas accounts for 9.37% of the national GDP of the United States, the largest economy in the world. Therefore, it shouldn't be surprising that if it were a country, that Texas would rank among the top 10 largest economies in the world. In fact, it would assume the impressive number 8 spot, surpassing economic powerhouses like Brazil, Canada, Russia, Australia, and Spain. That's just how powerful Texas's economy truly is.